sit back, enjoy, and hopefully this is good information for you to take back to your teams. We start as we always do, talking and trying to refer things, if we can, to a cybersecurity framework that we believe kind of simplifies the security landscape. We also like not only that visual, but this visual. I think in a simple way, this puts detection right at the heart of things visually. It also, on the left-hand side, things begin with identifying, what it is that you have within your organization that might be worthy to adversaries or to hackers or even to a rogue employee. And the other reason I like this is because prevention and reaction are equal. A lot of times IT budgets and focus is often on protecting the castle, right? And keeping all the data away from the bad people. Well, oftentimes you can't, right? Even organizations with more significant resources than ourselves, such as CIA and others, have accidents or have measures that they can't overcome. And so oftentimes you just have to sometimes react, and that reaction could include recovering systems, having an incident response plan, and so forth. So with that as context, let's dive into this month's stories. I couldn't hold myself back. There's just more than 4, so bear with me. We're going to kind of just keep some of them quick and light, and even one popped up this morning that I had to throw in there too. So Windows 10 is end of the line. We've got 50%, believe it or not, of Windows 10 versions are no longer patched. Okay, so we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Oh, the holidays bring all sorts of gifts, right? Especially devices like this, and also comes a special kind of susceptibility that we'll kind of chat through. Good old Alexa devices. If this phone call came in to your iPhone, would you pick up the call? Okay, we'll talk about a few people that did and a little bit of a threat that's going around right now. We're also going to talk about, since we're a little bit behind on the State of the Union, we're going to talk about a few events occurring that will kind of bring us up to date using the I think I skipped one too many ahead there, but the CSO's 2018 U.S. State of Cybercrime. And we're also going to have a little discussion about FaceTime here at the end. All right, so let's jump into Windows 10 end of life. So you'll see Windows has come out with multiple versions through the years. Windows 10 specifically, it's been out for actually about 3 years now. You'd be surprised, 3.5 years. And finally, in terms of market share, probably a little hard for you to see, but Windows 10 just in December passed Windows 7 as the most prolific operating system out there, meaning there's more deployments of Windows 10 than Windows 7. So, watershed moment for Microsoft, yay, but what it's time to start focusing on, and I think certainly we're seeing that organizationally. We've deployed 30,000 seats of Windows 10 in the last year. And this year, we're already engaged in a number of projects, and that queue is getting pretty long. So we're seeing a fair amount of deployment of Windows 10. It's kind of finally people are saying, okay, it's time, and or they're just spending the time and attention to go there. But I think what's underserved, and certainly this is referenced in our blog at the bottom there, source, end of life, beginning of loss. And that is the fact that these Windows 10 versions that they roll out with, and they're tending to come out with a frequency of a spring update and a fall update. So for those that are new, I'll go to the next slide, and this might be a little bit of an eye chart for you, but let's get oriented to what's happening here. These are the versions of Windows 10 on the left-hand side, in the leftmost column, 1507, and that's literally in July of 07, or July of 2015 was the first version of Windows 10. If you're still running that, right, as you kind of go to the right, you'll notice it was released in 2015. The Pro version of that no longer was getting patches as on May 9th of 2017. The Enterprise and Education versions were not getting it on May 9th either. Usually between Pro and Enterprise, one of the things you're going to notice is about a 1-year difference in dates, and that begins with the 1709 version there. So the versions are listed along the left. Anything that's in yellow is no longer getting patched, right? And so that's more than 50% of the versions of Windows 10 are no longer getting patched if you have the Pro version. It's one of the reasons you go to Enterprise is you get an additional 12 months of patching support along with your operating system. But what I just want to point out is the fact that the need is there to keep things patched. And there's a couple ways you can tell if things are patched. One is, certainly if you're running Windows 10 right now, you can just run the command winver, W-I-N-V-E-R, and that'll tell you your version of Windows. And you can look, and usually it's going to list, oh, you're running 1703. Well, you better hope then that you're on the Enterprise version, as you've got a little bit of time, 1709 or 1803 and so forth. So winver is one way to do it. And then if you want to do it at an organizational level, this blog has a full reference to the script, but if you run a PowerShell script that looks something like this, it will give you a nice little output that tells you, hey, here's all the versions of Windows 10 you're running in your environment now. And oftentimes, ironically, IT is the ones that first went to Windows 10, but maybe hasn't kept up with the versions. And so just wanted to highlight that is a security concern. And if you're looking for someone to give you assistance with regards to patching, whether it be Windows 10 or as you come on to new versions, know that we manage about 2,000 systems a month that we have complete patching responsibility for our customers. So that was our first story, is Windows 10, and just kind of giving you some updates there. Again, if you want some source information, check our blog, End of Life and Beginning of Loss. All right, the second ones, and I think I have 3 quick stories here, are all about just kind of quick consumer fakes, if you will, and things that you could certainly educate your base around. They should be part of a security awareness program. They could be part of your monthly updates, kind of as you're using maybe this for yourself. How do we disseminate this type of information out to people? This story specifically came, this was an application. You can imagine a lot of people got these Alexa apps for Christmas, right? So what do? Well, if you're unaware of how to set up an Amazon Alexa device, you might go to the store and say, I need a setup app for my Amazon Alexa. And indeed, if you searched setup for Amazon Alexa, there is an app that would meet your direct match. It's right there on the screen. It got poor reviews because it didn't do anything, right? This application is not necessary. It's a complete fraud. Now, what you might be interested to know is this app achieved 6th place in downloads in the utilities section in the days after Christmas. This got into 60th place overall in terms of applications. Under top free applications. There were over 100,000 downloads of this application. And again, this application does nothing. It's a complete fake. What does it do? Well, it asks, just like many apps ask, it asks you to say, hey, I need my location services, or to share your location services. Sure enough, when people were installing it, they shared their location services. Additionally, it gave personal information about your IP address, your browser, URLs, clickstream data, domain names, landing pages, page views, all the things that sometimes some of these applications require access to as part of a legitimate application, but this application literally did nothing. I thought it kind of ironic that in the upper left, you'll notice it got a ranking of 3.7 for doing nothing. So just kind of one of those apps that was out there. I thought it was kind of funny and ironic that things come in all sorts of shapes and flavors. As to how they get in the store, I have no idea. A second one, and by no means do I need to pick on the Apple Store or Apple here, but this was an interesting story. This was Krebs on security. So in the bottom right, the source there, when you receive the slides, you'd be able to click on that. Calls were being generated, and people were noticing fake calls coming with, and it was popping up on people's phones as Apple Incorporated with what appeared to be legitimate information on the left-hand side. Obviously, when a phone call is coming to you, you really want to make sure that you either A, don't answer it, B, screen, C, look up what the legitimate numbers might be, or find what those legitimate numbers are and call them. Initiating a call is certainly better than receiving. But what happened in this particular case is it was an automated call. And it would say multiple servers containing Apple user IDs have been compromised. Please call this number. And it gave a 866-277-7794 number. You would call it, or at least the publisher in this case called it. It said, oh, you'll be on a hold time for 1.5 minutes, and after a minute, he got a call from a representative with an Indian accent who basically was trying to convince people to purchase $500 Google Play cards in order to navigate around some of these Apple user IDs. Presumably somewhat successful. There's no that's not really the measure. The measure that I wanted to make sure you were aware of is that always use the number on the back of a card or from your billing statement when calling support. People are getting pretty tricky about trying to fake people's even contact information to show Apple Incorporated and make it look as legitimate as possible just to earn your trust. This is true not only of this phone call situation, but there's also been instances I wanted to put on the screen, text messaging from purportedly AT&T. Right? If you got a message like this, is this a number that you would call? Or over on the right-hand side, people's screens sometimes will say, oh, Comcast is having an issue. Call this number. Often when they're calling you, they're looking for personal information and or for you to siphon money off into accounts such as, gift cards and otherwise. So be wary. And the last stories around, I'll call it consumer fraud, are around the State of the Union report from CSO. You're certainly welcome to look at the report yourself. It's relatively insightful. It's got a lot of good graphical tips and so forth, but I pulled out one graphic or 3 graphics in specific that I thought were interesting. First of all, looking at this one, this is I think 580 executives were from all sorts of businesses, answered 60 questions to kind of generate the data behind this result. It's something they've done year after year. And if you're looking at the 2 things here, the pie chart will show you that there's a 1/4 chance that insiders are a part of the problem as opposed to the outsiders. Let's just kind of have that in your brain. And then on the right-hand side, the 36% of those insiders, those were unintentional or accidental problems. So basically 1/8 of your security problem is accidental problems or non-intended consequences of your users. Okay? Just because they have the permissions and they don't have the knowledge, they may make a mistake. Okay? And that's something that I think it's interesting to focus on. So let's drill into that a little bit more. If 1 out of 8 of our problem is our unknowledgeable end user or employee, what might they do? Well, taking a look at this graphic from in there, one of the things they're going to be doing is the innocent employee is going to fall for a phishing or hacker scam. Or if you combine that with the careless employee is going to blend work and personal apps together. Or looking down a couple lines from there, the innocent employee is going to maneuver around policies. So almost all of it could be attributed to an innocent employee doing something that they shouldn't be doing. And a lot of this falls to your security awareness program, right? Letting them know what's reasonable, how to use devices, what are some warning signs, and so forth. So a lot of this speaks to your security awareness. And so to that end, what typically happens in the insider incidents result in customer records being compromised 61% of the time, confidential records, PII, private information, or theft of medical information. That's what's happening. I guess I just wanted to kind of pull out a few stats that I thought were kind of illustrative of what's happening at the security awareness level. To that end, what can we do about it, right? Well, here's where you're operating from a budget perspective. You probably spend, and I'm assuming most organizations on this call are 1 to 5,000 employees on the right-hand side, the 2 columns on the right-hand side. And I'm assuming that a majority of you then fall into the, 60%, probably about 80% of you have budgets that are somewhat less than 25K. Some of you might be having less than 5K in terms of what your budget is for security awareness. Okay, it's not a high budget item yet for you to solve 1/8 of your problem. So what methodology do you employ? Do you use a carrot or a stick to kind of get there? Well, the carrot we believe is kind of best practice, right? The trying to get people in your field that are ambassadors of learning, and that might be, how do you motivate them to be aware of situations, to point out phishing emails as an example, to listen to the news and say, whoa, what's happening here with FaceTime or with this ABC application, or what is multi-factor authentication? And having them ask the right questions and kind of build a culture of reinforcing and good behavior. And knowing that, the result of their behaviors could mean actual financial loss at the end of the day. It only takes one time for a department to get burned, right, before suddenly you're gaining some advocates for security awareness. Obviously, the stick could be things like a regulatory or policy saying you shall not do this. You could build it into reviews and say, hey, you clicked on a number of phishing emails, or you didn't employ good security practices, your desk wasn't clean, or I saw you not shredding information, all of these things. So, and certainly you can target people who have been violators to endure more training, if you will, to kind of change their behaviors to the positive. So in any case, all of these things, we're kind of dancing around the fact that, you can do a number of things, right? You can do nothing regarding security awareness. You can provide them some really boring PowerPoints. You could have them attend this monthly webinar and video, although this might also be equal to number 2 if you find this boring. We could, you could have them, you could test them, right, and track and measure, if you will. You could provide a learning management system where there are a number of different things they could learn, little scenarios like I'm pointing out today, or even more extensive, maybe ones that are relevant to your compliance standards or to money handling, things of that nature. And so an entire learning management system might be warranted, as well as testing and training, with a goal of, at the end of the day, making your employees and really reducing that risk, that 1/8 risk, I'll call it, down to as little as possible by having the humans and your employees within your organization being excellent at that. One approach we use with our customers is to, from our standpoint, we have kind of a turnkey offering called Pulse Aware, where we are providing a whole database of on-demand security training. Video is the preferred method for that. There are several thousand videos that are available, and we help you navigate what videos we think are the most progressive based on topics. We'll help you and we'll conduct for you the monthly phishing campaigns. We'll give you what we call your phishing prone scores, which is something that you would like to work up and up over time, sort of, again, tracking and measuring, and showing you what those trends are, because there is an ROI on security awareness training. It's just that it's very difficult to quantify without a tool. So to some degree, that's the thought and mindset behind it, and certainly available to do a free trial of this at any time. Last but not least in this space, and I guess this should be labeled 4, breaches. If you've purchased any of these breaches, these were all brands that had a difficult 2018. Okay, they all had breaches in the year. The Marriott one was extremely extensive. That just sort of happened in, I think, the November-December timeframe. The losses range from passwords to the site, almost always the credit card information, some personal information, addresses, purchases, delivery dates. A lot of information went out this in 2018. It was a bad year from that perspective. Additionally, you should know about this, which is it's called the collection number 1 breach. Okay, and it actually wasn't a breach, believe it or not. It's called number 1 because it was number 1. It literally was the top breach of 2018, and yet it wasn't a breach. What it was someone found, and this is ethical hackers, essentially found a database of logins and passwords for 1.2 million people. Now, it was only 773 unique email addresses, but the fact is this was a huge collection of accounts from prior breaches that were all aggregated into a large database. And here's what's interesting about this. I guess let me break out of this screen, and I'm going to present to you on my screen a few things. Let's go to share my desktop. All right, we'll move off this. Couple things. All right, so have I been pawned? Okay, so there's a website that's referenced in the article, and I may have shown this to you in the past, or you may have known about this. This is a website that tracks these databases, and you'll notice this is where I got the screen print. So this database of accounts and email addresses can take a look for you and to see if you have been linked in the past. Okay, so let's go take a look at my personal email. Have I been pawned in the past? The answer is, oh no, I've been pawned on 5 breach sites. Okay, meaning my email address was contained within the databases, including the collection number 1 database of email addresses. I think it's interesting to know about this site. I think it's not worthwhile to get too concerned, obviously, about any individual breach. Some of these could have been, this has been my email address for quite a long time, maybe 20 years, in fact. So the date of when it was breached might be relevant, but it certainly highlights the fact that, wow, my stuff is out there and has been part of these collections in the past. And that's interesting in and of itself. Another portion of it is a passwords database, which is separate. There are real passwords out there, and you might be thinking, oh, no one's going to guess my password. Wouldn't it be nice to know if your password has ever been used out there? You might think it's so unique to you, right? There's no way it could be part. And if it is so unique to you and it's such a great password, then absolutely it shouldn't be out there, right? Well, I'm going to type in an easy one. Let's go password 123. Okay, we certainly expect that to be out there, right? Most popular password. And as I do password 123, sure enough, 1,000, 100, many times, many database findings, if you will, of that. Okay, let's try something more unique to me. Okay, passwords that I have used in the past that I think they're pretty specific to me. Oh boy. Okay, now your stuff is out there. Okay, and what you think is unique to you has actually been collected. So I show you that only, not to scare you, just to kind of let you know that there is information out there. There's password databases and so forth that I think are kind of interesting, kind of relevant. And I'll now zip back to the PowerPoint. Whoops. Let's go back to here. And all right, and with the 5 minutes remaining, let's kind of zip through. So this makes you possibly think about implementing MFA. I would highlight to you that implementing MFA is a good step. We believe very strongly in MFA. We employ it for ourselves all the time with no conditions for every application here at our organization. That said, I've had some discussions in prior months about how you implement MFA matters. I won't drill into all the details at this point, but there are things like SIM swapping on your phone, where I could have access to your phone and your phone number for a while, which therefore allows me, the MFA tokens are coming to the phone, which could be out in California because I've done a SIM swap on you. So it makes SMS and calling a little bit lower tier of quality than something like a software token or a hardware token. Additionally, there are sites, and I reference the one, two-factor authentication, which talk about which applications are eligible for MFA. Can you put MFA on Facebook? Can you put it on your Salesforce application? Can you put it on here? And this database tells you which applications are supporting MFA. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Rather than do a demo, I'll let you go to that site on your own. But I think it's kind of interesting to kind of give some thought to that. As your consumer information may or may not be out there, I want to point out also, this is not something I'm recommending at an organizational level, but something that certainly individuals have been doing, and that is keeping a password manager that keeps and generates passwords against some of these sites. We're, again, not here recommending a particular product in this space, but do know that ranking system is out there. I'm going to retry the share there. Okay. Additionally, in addition to password managers, there is Certainly should be aware of the fact that you can do credit freezes. There was a law passed late last year that allowed you to do the credit freezes for free. This was after the Experian and the Marriott losses. And effectively, all three providers will allow you to do credit freezes. That FAQ might make you more aware of what a credit freeze is and how it's not impactful on things like your credit rating, things of that nature. I have a few slides on MFA phishing. I won't drill into as much detail as I thought on this, but do know that there are people that are trying to impersonate MFA providers and certain services, such as Gmail on the left-hand side. There are these middle servers, you can watch that video that's referenced there, that are impersonating MFA and navigating around it. There are also on the right-hand side certain services, Proton Mail, and I believe there's another one, Tutanoka, not well used in the US anyway, but these were sites where the .org, when really they're a .com, or in this case Proton Email, that E is extra. These are fake sites. And they employ and try to get you to enter in your credentials so that they can go utilize those credentials against other sites. So a couple reasons why MFA has kind of been at the edges of MFA is not extremely well deployed. So you want it to be well deployed, and we've got a pilot offering for employing multi-factor authentication using Office 365. If you own it, also employing Enterprise Mobility Suite, MFA, and making sure that you have a good experience for maybe 10 users in your environment, doing all the things that are mentioned there. The last and final story that kind of snuck in there is FaceTime. Not a lot for you to do at this time. Just know that I think it was on Monday evening, a breach was discovered that where one person FaceTiming another was able to hear people even without them accepting the call. And so what Apple has done is disabled group FaceTime capability. As a preventative measure, if you'd like, you can go on your iOS devices and Macs and disable that, but there should be a patch expected later this week. And to that point, I just wanted to make sure you knew that we have a end user management service where we're doing this on behalf of our customers. We're helping them with the mobile device management and disabling their FaceTime, and we're scheduling the patching when it's available next week to have that aware. And that's just a turnkey service, but I think it highlights another reason why people want those types of services as well as MDM. That's called Pulse Complete End User Management. So with that, just want to re-mention the fact that there are free trials of the phishing as well as our security audit. We're certainly happy to have coffee and a meeting and discussion about security at any time. We've got a few events coming up. In fact, we just did some planning this morning for what our February, March, and April events are going to be. In March on the 20th, I think we have an in-person event at Michael Jordan's, and look forward to you attending that. That should be up on our website relatively soon. On the right are a few blogs that were recently written that might be of some interest to you. Enterprise Mobility Suite, a recap of 2018, and oh no, my Office 365 trial tenant was deprovisioned. What can I do? That's it for Bruce. Sorry, run a little bit over. We had so many things happening these last couple months that it's good to catch up, and hopefully you found some stories that were of some value to you.